Good morning. I will try to make this as quick as possible. I just wanted to go over a couple of features of the class that are important to take note of. And I also want to speak very briefly about why I chose If Beale Street Could Talk and Upstate by Felicia Buchanan and the other items that go along with those two texts. So the first thing that I would like to tell you about is the grade center, which you may not be fully aware of. This is the grade center for another class that I am enrolled in as a student. So the only way that I can see the grade center the way that you do is if I'm actually in a class as a student, which is kind of weird because then it's difficult for me to know what due dates you're seeing and what point values you're seeing and other items like that. And there are various ways you can look at your assignments, as you can see. And this tells me that I have an average, but I know that this average of 88 is wrong because there are several assignments that are late that I have not completed, such as my completed course map and my hybrid syllabus. These are things for the fall that I just have not been able to do. Something due May 30th that I need to redo, etc. So another feature of the grade book that I want you to think about, the first one being, I don't have an 88 average because I have not attempted all of the work I was supposed to attempt. But if you see these little comment boxes that look like how people might speak in a cartoon, you can, I often make comments on your work. So, for example, when you click on the box, these are the comments I received from one of the instructors of the class who keeps trying to tell me to use Textmythnomia, which drives me crazy. But anyway, in your own grade center, you will find comments and sometimes also attachments where I give you feedback, if necessary, on your work. So please make sure that you see the comments section in your grades. Now, the second thing I want to tell you about, switching back to our class, our landing page is now the announcements page. And within our discussions in particular, but also within some of our folders for each novel, I have some videos and some additional sources. So for Monday, for example, I have a couple of extra links, and you might wonder, what are these things for? Well, they are a brief TED Talk that's only 8 minutes and a presentation that is only 2 minutes that describe two problem-solving critical thinking concepts. The first, restorative justice, and the second, prison reform or prison abolition. And then the third here is about community policing. So the discussion for Monday asks us to imagine how the events that take place in If Beale Street Could Talk or the events that take place in Upstate might have gone down differently if restorative justice, prison reform, community policing, and these strategies that come from African American studies directly and from African American culture directly were in play in our society rather than what we actually have. Instead of restorative justice, we have retributive justice, which means you get punished for whatever gets defined as a crime. The punishment, as you might know, for having crack is much more severe than the punishment for having cocaine. That doesn't make any sense unless you take into consideration that crack is more often used by people without money, and cocaine is used by wealthy Wall Street bankers. The opposite of prison reform would be the system that we have right now, in which guards are not trained, inmates are not offered educational opportunities, and children are tried and incarcerated as adults. And then the opposite of community policing is police with guns or who will just kneel on your neck. So the reason we have these options is to imagine the world differently and to solve problems productively. Another addition that I made in the daily work that also applies pretty directly to most of the things that we will read. And these discussion topics also offer an opportunity for you to start testing out ideas that you can then add into your first paper. So you never have to start anything from scratch in this class. You can always build upon your knowledge and bring together ideas from the quizzes or the discussions to write them in your paper. Forgive me because I'm slightly not paying attention to okay, so here is a document about intersectionality. And intersectionality is one of the first and foremost ideas of African American studies that also crosses over into feminist studies. And the crossover is exactly what intersectionality is. So when the race and gender dimensions of violence against women, for example, come together and hit someone twice as hard, that is an intersecting pattern of racism and sexism. Another example would be when the intersecting patterns of homophobia or transphobia and of race come together and hit someone twice as hard. A trans person of color is facing intersectional struggles. Intersectionality is not only about these routinized forms of domination, it's not just another form of oppression. It is also an experience that for many creates a perspective and a kind of problem-solving skill, critical thinking, and teamwork that could result in visionary social change. So remember that whenever we look at people who struggle, we also see people who overcome, and very often what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So these concepts that we look at will also teach us how to make a better world. So if you have questions about any of these ideas that we're pairing up with the novels, certainly send me an email. Maybe today I'll make a bonus discussion forum where you can just ask any question you want. And I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you.